in this video, I'm going to walk you through step by step the metabolic hacking strategy that I've used with 200 men in the last 6 months alone to get them to 10% body fat. And I'll walk you through step by step, giving everything out on the table for you guys, the viewers, based upon an actual client case study with my client Mitch right here, who got absolutely shredded eating more food if you can't see. So how we did this, and specifically, we're going to actually go through what the starting macros were for him, how we actually added more food and tailored it to his metabolism, a little bit about your metabolism, and I'm going to actually walk you through step by step the changes that we made. And I know a lot of guys usually have a question on the metabolic priming strategy that we use. Guys who've been following my channel for a while, like, how do we know when to start the cut? And I'll actually show you exactly with my client Mitch right here how we knew his body was at the top end of a metabolic priming phase. So if you guys don't know me by now, my name's Adam Bono. I'm an online fat loss professional, and I specialize in metabolic strategies. I've helped 200 men in just the last 6 months from 7 different countries get to 10% body fat using the actual mechanism of science called metabolic priming. And so today I'm going to show you to it. And, you know, before I do get started, there is going to be a link in the description below for anybody who would like to work with us. We work with a community of men of over 215 men currently, getting into leaner body fat percentages. We run a really tight-knit community. So if you are somebody who's like, you know what, I love this. I've been watching your videos for a while now. I just want you to do this for me and take it all off my hands. There will be a link in the description of this video for you to sign up and see if you are a good fit to join the program. We do not just take everybody, but if you are a good fit, we'll get you on board and we'll get to show you how we do things. We'll walk you through step by step, A through Z, and we'll see if it is a good fit for us to work together. But anyways, what you guys really did come for today was showing you guys exactly how I made this possible. So I actually want to show you, first of all, kind of where he was at when he first came to us. And it was at a very low calorie amount, which I see a lot of the clients that do come to us, and majority, probably 95% of the clients that have came to us have tried the low carb diets, the keto diets, and the very just low calorie diets, and they get stuck and plateaued out a very low calorie amount, maybe doing some cardio, but they're just kind of stuck spinning their wheels, not being able to break past that new plateau after been dieting for a severe amount of time. And you might be one of those guys. You might have lost 30, 40, 50, maybe even 60 pounds in the past, but now the same diet, you with the low carb diet, low calorie diet, isn't just isn't working for you anymore. And I'm going to explain why a little bit behind the reason, but this is what we use with all of our clients. We really dive into the metabolic structure of our clients, into how we can tailor food to be able to have our bodies actually burn more calories before we have to go out and do more caloric burn. So, and then since Mitch's initial consultation, he mentioned he was at 13 to 1,500 calories, had been plateaued for about 2 months with zero progress, no matter how low he got his calories. His sleep and energy is down. The drain, and he is feeling immense brain fog, which, you know, if you are somebody who has been feeling immense brain fog, also bloating is a sign of it as well. Indigestion, bloating, like terrible sleep, and just major fatigue. Those are all signs of metabolic decline. He wants to get rid of a six-pack and get shredded. He wants to bring out his lats and shoulders, wants to look wider, which all my clients do. All my clients are the guys who want to get to a six-pack shredded physique. So the plan is to slowly work him out of his large deficit and implement a good fat goal, a good protein goal based upon our formulas. Then start working carbs back into his diet to fix brain fog, energy levels, as well as fix his hunger, leptin and ghrelin, right? And so when you go into a very low calorie diet, low carbohydrate diet for an extended period of time, you start to influence actual leptin and ghrelin levels, which leptin is the satiety hormone, ghrelin is the hunger hormone. So if you go through a very long amount of time and you crash these hormones, you start to, one, get those sugar cravings, get the high amounts of hunger, and it's because you're not getting your body enough carbohydrates to satiate the leptin levels. Pair them with strength training program optimized for shoulders, back, increase. Check in weekly, make sure no body fat is added. So, yep, and that's exactly what we did. Hell yeah, you've been the life changer for me. I never thought I would be able to see my abs in my life. So he started off right here, 1,500 calories, right? And what we did was we implemented, first of all, a good strategy when it comes to his macronutrients. And I'm going to show you guys the macronutrient strategy here in a second, but I want to show you his full transformation from top to bottom. So we actually gave him, right here, as you can't see, almost to 1,100 more calories from the start. So on top of that would be another 500 calories. So he is actually up in these photos 1,600 calories, right? So he's 1,600 calories up. And notice this, he's the exact same weight, right? Exact same weight that he came in, just actually a little bit heavier. But that's not the whole point. The whole point is that he's able to eat 1,600 more calories and be at the same weight. So on the back end of things, when we actually got him into a proper cut, this is what his body weight actually looked like. Got down to 180, almost 18, 20 pounds down, and eating right at that 2,000 calorie mark, right? And so how do we make this possible? First of all, like when each and every single one of our clients comes to us, the first thing we want to do is we want to drop all cardio. Why do we want to drop all cardio? Is because in the metabolic priming phase, what we really try to focus on is like filling the bathtub up. And what do you mean by this is, let me bring out a small description of what I mean by filling the bathtub up, okay? So we think about the bathtub as like food, right? We add food, we kind of try to get your metabolic rate to actually rise. And so as we're starting to fill this bathtub up, what we want to make sure we do is make sure we're keeping caloric burn to an all-time low. So as we start to fill this bathtub up, if the drain is pulled and we're still doing high-intensity cardio, then we won't be able to fill the bathtub up as much. In an instance, we'll actually have to add more food on top of that. And so we want to make sure that we fill the bathtub up, and the bathtub is our resources, our food, our cardio to work with, and then our steps, which those are the three main points and the three main drivers when it comes to your overall fat loss phase. So we want to start to optimize for that. And so if we kind of take this kind of diagram right here, the thing we want to realize is that like when Mitch came to us, he was eating very low amounts of calories. I can't even go that low. He was doing maybe 30 minutes of cardio, but we could already imagine, just based upon his hormones and based upon his how he felt, based upon where he was at, based upon his previous diet experience, his metabolism was just absolutely shot, right? And so what we needed to do is we needed to get this up here. We needed to actually get this to rise. And so how we did this was we first of all cut all the cardio and we just added steps, right? We just added 10K steps, right? So we just added 10K steps into Mitch's plan, and that's going to be his basically cardio. What 10K steps is a low intensity form of cardio that's non-inflammatory on the body, that also leads to better digestion, leads to lower cause rate mortality, and it's going to also help with just a little bit of caloric burn without a high intensity state. So like the reason why we do this is that, let's say that when we do get at the back end of metabolic priming phase, because the entire goal is to get this up to where it was right here. So obviously, as you've seen, like Mitch's calories got to about 3,100 calories. Let's say, imagine this. Imagine he was in his metabolic priming phase, as we're filling this bathtub up, he's also doing 30 minutes of cardio. So the first thing we'd have to do when we start lowering this food a little bit is we'd have to start this cardio up here, right? Because we're going to have to adhere and adjust to the cardio that you've already been doing, right? Because how cardio works is cardio, for instance, you adapt to it very quickly, right? You adapt to it in the form of your cardiovascular system improves. You get better at doing the actual cardio. So the caloric burn you do per cardio session actually starts to decline over time. That's why you have to scale it up. So like, we want to be able to scale it up from zero, right? If we have our starting point at 20 minutes, our starting point at 30 minutes, now look how much more time we really have. And then we can obviously, when the guys get up on the upwards of like 2 hours of cardio, but that starts to bring negative effects to overall just inflammation. So we want to cut cardio, and that's going to be really important with overall filling the bathtub up to preparing us for metabolic priming in the metabolic priming phase. So like your body adjusts to cardio. 25 minutes of cardio on day one does not burn the same amount of calories as day 30, because your body adapts to it. Your body gets better at doing it. Your cardiovascular system improves, so you just have a lower caloric burn. So step 2 is dial in macros. Find your starting calories first, right? So there's multiple ways that you can find your starting calories. Best way to do it, track 3 days, right? Get on we use MyFitnessPal with our clients. Track for 3 days straight. Add the total amount of those calories up, and then divide by 3. Average caloric intake. 1.2 grams per body weight for your protein intake, 0.3 times fat for your body weight in fat intake, and then fill the rest with carbs, right? So how we can do this is, let's say, for instance, that you weigh 200 pounds, right? So 200 pounds times 1.2. Let me see what that is real quick. So, but what I'm trying to explain is that we can calculate this in a specific way. So 200 pounds times 1.2 would be 240. So I actually don't get clients upwards of like 240 very often. I think the top end of your protein intake should be, you're good with 225, right? And so, like, if your body weight is anything above 200, I would just start with 225 protein right here. It'd be a perfect amount of protein to start with, so 225 protein. Fat intake, if you're at 200 times 0.3 would be 60, right on the money, right? And so now we have our starting fat goal and protein goal. What do we do in between, right? So what we could do is 225 times 4 equals 900. And how I got that is because it's 4 calories per gram for each gram of protein, right? And then 60 times 9, which fat intake is you have 9 grams per calorie. 540 would be the 9 times 60. Then we can do this. Add 900, and then your starting calories for protein and carbs would be 1,400, right? You're 1,400. So 1,440 actually. So this would be your calories from protein and fats. Now you would take your starting calories, you would minus that, minus 1,440, and then you would get your starting calories from carbs. And then the starting calories from carbs, you would divide by 4, and that would get your starting gram of carbohydrates. Okay? So we run through. I like to explain this formula because I think this is where most people go wrong. The tracking macros is specifically where most people go wrong. Anyways, step 3 would be the actual, cutting phase, which I'm going to run through you in a second. But I want to explain too why we do this and the importance of metabolic priming in general. Because a lot of people think that like exercise, for instance, is the biggest way you burn calories. It's actually the smallest way you burn calories. The biggest way you burn calories is your basal metabolic rate. It makes up 60% of how you burn calories. So, breathing, blood flow, sleeping, organ function, the thermic effect of food, which is the overall food intake the overall calories that it takes your body to break down the food intake. So like fat, for instance, the macromolecule fat has a 3% thermic effect. Protein has a 30. Carbs have a 10. So we utilize a lower fat diet. Why we utilize a lower fat diet is because we have to have a higher thermic effect of the food that we eat. That's why we use 0.3 times our fat intake. So, and then active energy expenditure. So non-planned and planned exercise. So non-energy activity thermogenesis makes up about 20% of how you burn calories. Neat, right? This is walking, movement, slow movements for the day. And you want to know the actual exercise calories you burn through the day? About 5%. So the workouts you do, all the extra cardio that you're doing only makes about 5% about how your body potentially can burn calories. So knowing this, it's not ever about you doing more cardio. It's about eating the right amount of food to supplement our basal metabolic rate and our thermic effect of food, so we can get the best possible caloric burn. So how do we do this with Mitch? And I want to walk you through this, and I got the everything up and running right here, and so you can kind of see this step by step. Anyways, like at 1,500 calories, we can see with Mitch that we simply each week, once we got to starting macros, 25 grams of carbs, 25 grams of protein. And so we got Mitch up to 225 protein, yes. And here's the one caveat I would say with the protein intake. If, like, for instance, you are extremely undereating, let's say that you are 200 pounds, right? And you've been eating 150 grams of protein. I would start with a lower end of the range and like 1 gram per body weight in protein, just because if you shoot straight up for a 1.2 gram per body weight, it can feel like you're eating a lot just because protein is very satiating. But we can scale that up a little bit more. But like 200 grams of protein, 1 pound per body weight is pretty standard. But I will put into context that they do have scientific studies that show that a higher protein intake of 1.2 times your body weight has a higher actual thermic effect of food, and a thermic effect similar to an over-counter fat burner based upon the thermic effect of food that I kind of showed you within the diagram of how your body burns food. So yeah, we start them off with 200 grams of protein, but we start very, very quickly raise that up to 225. But you'll notice we don't necessarily raise food up too much in the form of protein, but we do raise carbohydrates. And you can see each week as we start to raise these carbohydrates, how his body starts reacting. He starts getting wider. He starts getting stronger. His body starts reacting very, very well. And so we get to the point right here when we get pretty high in calories. We get to that like 3,100 calorie mark. And we start to say, okay, we need to start to look for certain signs that his body's kind of maxed out at the top end of metabolic priming phase. So the easiest way that I can put it is that usually, typically, our clients, it's usually the rule of thumb is typically like 198 times 18. Usually like 18 times your body weight's like the top end. Well, wouldn't say that is like a rule that I want you to follow, but I will say that like usually what we want to do and what we want to optimize for is 350 to 400 grams of carbohydrates, depending on your height, weight, age, etc. But we want to at least get 350 to 400 grams of carbohydrates under our belt, because that's what we can take away from in more of a cutting phase. So like we want to be aiming for that, right? So once we start to get to the 350 range, 400 range, we can start to see, really nail in and kind of look deeper into the situation and see how your body is responding. And we can make decisions based upon that. We do have outliers. We do have guys who get up to 500, 550 grams of carbs, and their body weight still hasn't moved. And just keeping in mind, the more calories, more carbohydrates you have to work with, the more you fill that bathtub, the more you have to drop from when it comes to actual cutting phase. But you can kind of see right here, when we kind of hit the cut point, how to know when to start your cut, you'll see a slight water retention spike, slight weight spike, and it's usually weight times 18 in calories, okay? So like for Mitch right here, he didn't necessarily fall into that category of weight times 18, because that would have been like right around 3,500, but we do start to see a small weight spike, right? We still start to see, and you can see my notes right here. I was like, watch here for a week or two, depending on how his body reacts, start cut within the next 2 weeks. And we can kind of see within his side shots, I want you to see the very, very minute change, very minuscule change in his body composition from up here to right here, right? Notice how we see a little bit of weight spike, a little bit of body composition, and it even shows on his actual scale on this day that he checked in. You can see this little big spike right here. I was like, okay, yep, like we are good. We have 425 grams of carbs under our belt. We were right around that 3,100 calorie mark. His weight had a nice little spike, and then his body composition had a nice little bounce back. And this is good, because now we know we're at the top end. So what do we do next? We start lowering food. Lower food, right? We lower food, raise cardio, and like this is the kind of cadence we will do it, right? We'll lower food, raise cardio, raise cardio 10 minutes, 4 times weekly, 35 minutes. We'll put him at like a 200 to 300 calorie deficit, and you can see how well he starts to lean out week by week, and it's the same cadence. One thing, the caveat I would say here is that I would not recommend lowering food and adding more cardio. You want to have one variable, right? You want to change either one, lower food, or 2, raise cardio. You don't want to do both, right? Why you don't want to do both is because you want to know which one has the highest amount of benefits to it. So the goal should be, as long as you're at losing 0.5 to 1.5 times your body pounds per week, you don't really need to change anything. You just kind of let the weeks roll. Once you hit a plateau, once you hit a weight loss plateau, that's when you make an adjustment. And so you can see each week as he checked in, it's not like we change everything each week, but each week as he checked in, if his body weight had plateaued, we would actually lower it a little bit more. So let's put this in a concept of understanding this from a Morris perspective at this. So yes, we still keep 10K steps in. That is the same, because from a metabolic adaptation standpoint, your body's already used to walking and doing steps. Steps is also helps reduce lactate, so it can help reduce inflammation from your overall training sessions, your overall high-intensity cardio. So really, when Mitch came to us, we dropped his food a little bit, and then we started him off a little bit of cardio. We can usually start to get stepped up to like 12K steps, maybe even like 13K steps. Usually, like with our guys we work with, it's typical like a time commitment too, so we don't really have as much time, because steps are great for fat loss, but they do take more time, right? And so we just, same thing. It's like we just really start to lower these each week. One, will lower calories, wait for his weight to plateau. And if it's not, if he's still losing weight, even if it's just 0.5, like, because he checks on Thursday to Thursday, if he lost 0.5 pounds, we're good. We keep him running. If not, then next change would be, let's add a little bit more cardio. Weight, same thing applies. A little bit less food, same thing applies. And we can get him up all the way up into here. So biggest question I have is that, okay, like what happens when you get to the back end of that cutting phase? is that like, well, logically from more scientific perspective, we know metabolism has probably dropped a little bit over the course of a dieting phase, because that is what happens when you diet. Your metabolism starts to lower, it starts to adhere, it starts to adjust, it starts to adapt to the circumstances of food that you're currently at. So we know it's starting to lower right here. So what do we do when we get like kind of capped out? We get way back out of calories and out of resources. We're doing a bunch of cardio. Do the same thing, right? 10K steps. Maybe this time we'll like lower cardio to half and then raise a little bit of food. And then we'll start to push the bath water back up. We'll start to fill the tub back up. We've cut these back to 0, and we'll start to work this back up and raise this. It's like a never-ending cycle. And we have clients with us that have done it 3, 4, 5 times over the course of the last couple of years doing it with us. And each time you do it, you look better. And that's the whole purpose of it, is like you lose body fat, and then you get, obviously, your metabolic adaptation occurs, and you push the bar up and fix a lot of the metabolic, a lot of hormone levels, and you go back into the cut having more resources being time, yes, energy, probably, focus, probably, but also food, cardio, and steps, right? And so we want to make sure we do that properly. But yeah, it's a never-ending cycle. Mitch is actually in a second one right now, which is where I took this photo from just the other day, and he's looking even better than he was before in his cutting phase and in his metabolic priming phase. This is metabolic priming phase part 2 for Mitch, as we're starting to work him back up a little bit out of this deficit. But he's up. This is why the clients make the progress they do with us. We have clients 50 years old looking shredded, more shredded than most 20-year-olds using this exact method. So if you're somebody who has been struggling, like I said, there will be a link below for you to apply to work with us. We don't take everybody, but we do take a certain amount of people per month. So if you think that you are a good fit to work with us, and you want the help that you actually deserve, and you just want this laid out for you, because the purpose of this channel is I try to give everything for you guys to help each and every single one of you guys individually, give you as much value as humanly possible. But there are certain guys out there, like the guys we do work with, high-level individuals who are like, you know what, I just want you to do this for me. And we're happy to do that. So the link will be below. I appreciate you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.